Hi, you're listening to This Is Not Your Practice Life. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friends. I'm a certified life and emotional intelligence coach. And if you really want to step into your highest self, there are a few non-negotiables you're going to have to learn, and I am just the person to help you do it. No matter your past, I'm here to help you create a more fulfilling future. So stick around with me. Not only will I teach you how to navigate your brain's daily mind drama, but I'll help you actually understand your mind, your emotions, why you do the things you do, and why others do the things they do. Most importantly, I'll help you build the self-awareness skills to create whatever results you want. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your life. After all, this is not your practice life. Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. My name is Macy, and I am so excited to have you joining the podcast today. So really quickly, I am going to make some announcements. So if that is not your thing, feel free to fast forward maybe 5 or so minutes, and you'll catch probably the end of the announcement. And then we are getting into a very good episode about attachment styles. This is a topic that was requested by one of my clients, and it's actually something that has been coming up a lot for the women that I coach. Actually, when I was in my retreat back in January in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, we were sitting around the fire and we were talking about attachment styles. And I don't know the ins and outs of this, at the top of my head. So if someone asks me all of the attachment styles, there's 4 of them, I couldn't just rattle them off. So I've had to do some research and digging, but something that I really like to do on the podcast, and I hope that you all feel that when you're listening to the podcast, is that I really like to break things down in a way that hopefully anyone can understand. I'm very mindful of the fact that people listen not only all over the United States, but all over the world. I have so many listeners in other countries. I think I'm up to like 110, maybe even more countries that people listen. So I am very mindful that even with whether there's language barriers or there's going to be translations of things, I want to break things down in a way where hopefully most everyone can understand. So what I have done is I have really tried to study these attachment styles. And although I can't necessarily rattle it off because it's not what I study the way that I do emotional intelligence work. However, I do think it is a very important topic to cover. Now, before we do that, I just want to let you know, if you're listening to this episode as it releases, which is Monday, June 9th, that I have a brand new mini 6-week program that is launching. I think it's June 25th, if I'm remembering correctly. You need to get on my email list if you want to learn about it. You'll start seeing it on social media starting this week. It's called the Collab Studio, and I'm bringing in something new that I have never brought into any of my coaching programs, and that is human design. If you're not familiar with human design, it is a really cool tool. It is something that you take your information from when the day you were born, okay, so like your birth date and your birth time and your birth location, and it generates this entire report of how you operate energetically, which also ties into how you deal with people and things in your life emotionally. And this has actually been something that I've used in my own life for years, like for the last probably 4 or 5 years. When I was introduced to it, I found out what my human design was, and I learned how to harness it both in my life, in my business, and it was a game changer for me. It validated so many things that, other people thought were strange about things that I did or didn't do, and it all felt so aligned with me. But then I would question myself, and I would kind of go back on what things felt good to me because it wasn't the quote unquote norm. And then I get my human design report, and honestly, it's so complex. You often have to have a professional that studies this and is certified in it to give you the breakdown. So I did that with multiple professionals, and it it just cracked open my world in such a different way. It was like, oh, everything that I've already been doing makes sense. And now I know why I become exhausted by certain things, or why, certain things impact me the way they do, or why I need this amount of rest, or this is why I do this in my business when everybody else is getting success another way, why I do things differently. It's just like a full breakdown of your kind of like energetic inner makeup. And it's something that I haven't introduced to my audience because I don't want anybody becoming dependent on it. I don't want any of my clients to say like, well, my human design is, so that's why I do this, right? I wanted my audience to just be well-versed enough in emotional intelligence, whether you're a podcast listener or you've been in my other programs or you have been a longtime client. I wanted there to be enough emotional intelligence understanding to not make the human design an identity. And that's why, even though I've been using it for 5 years, I have not introduced it. But I think it's just such a fun and fresh way to approach emotional intelligence. So this 6-week mini program, the Collab Studio, you will get your human design report that is going to be generated by a professional who's certified in it. You will also get the opportunity to do a call with her, to ask her any questions, to go deeper into things maybe you don't understand. And then we're going to do the 6 weeks of group coaching where you're really going to dive deep and learn how to lean into this human design that you have, but also learn how to collab. That's why it's called the Collab Studio. Collab with other women and learn how to really utilize that when you are engaging in a coaching container. And so the same is going to be true for you. I really want everybody to be able to lean into this new tool and reflect things back. There's certain things that I'm able to do in how I hold space and how I see people and how I ask questions based on my human design. And every single human design, there are 5, are so different. And what I've noticed is if I get around certain people that have the same human design as me, I feel very validated. But if I get around other people that have a different human design as me, sometimes their questions and what they're able to see in me pulls out such vital things that actually like change and rock my world. Or if I get around someone again that has my same design, but they are doing things maybe a little bit differently or have figured out how to harness something, it's just so powerful. So the whole program is not based on human design alone, but it is something that we are going to introduce for you to have the foundational kind of understanding of getting to know yourself on this level. And we're going to use this in how we collaborate with others. So this is something new and different. And if you're interested in that, I have special pricing. It's $650 for you to sign up for this. You can do $650 pay in full, or you can do 3 payments. I think it's 200 and something for the program. And as a bonus, an early announcement bonus, if you sign up for the Collab Studio, make sure that you take a pause and ask yourself, do I want to be on the 2026 Women's Coaching Retreat? So remember that my last women's coaching retreat that was open to anyone was in St. George, Utah this past February. And I decided that for the next one, we are going to go in April. I think it's April 15th through the 19th. We are going to Miami. I have never been to Miami. I can't wait to go to Miami, and I can't wait to go with you. So if you're thinking you want to go to the women's retreat, here's what's so special. You can get the retreat for $1,000 off if you buy it at the same time as the Collab Studio. And you can either do the pay in full where you get both the Collab Studio and the retreat for $1,000 off, okay? Or you can do the 3-month payment plan, which makes it like $816 a month. And you will be all set for next year when we go to Miami. It includes your 4 nights, room and board. It includes your food. Like you're all set. The only thing you need to get is get yourself there with your plane or your Ubers or wherever, to where we're staying. And any spending money that you want to have for maybe your own things that you do. But anything that I plan for us as a group is already included in the price. So again, $1,000 off if you buy it with the Collab Studio, but you have to do that. You have to make that decision at checkout in order to save $1,000 on the retreat. Otherwise, the retreat is $2,800. So essentially, if you get it with the Collab Studio, instead of paying $2,800 for it, you are getting it for $1,800, okay? Either in a pay in full or in a 3-month payment plan. So That's what I needed to tell you. Now let's get into these attachment styles and really understanding yourself. We're going to do it in terms of romantic relationships. So I'm sure I could talk about this in a family way as well, but we're going to dig into it in terms of a romantic relationship, okay? So here's something that people, especially women, so, I know that men listen to the podcast as well. So definitely insert yourself in any of this as you would like. But usually in my language, I just talk to women because that's the bulk of my audience. So I'm not leaving you men out. I know that there are men that listen. So just wherever I'm saying women, just know that this is interchangeable. It could be you in a relationship as well. And I think that really understanding and knowing these attachment styles is so important. So it's something that I'm going to keep studying up on. But if you've ever noticed, like, you get anxious in relationships and you almost become overbearing, or maybe you're the opposite, you start to get deep feelings and then you pull away, or maybe you feel really good in your relationships and you feel super comfortable and secure, but you notice maybe your partner doesn't. That is why we're going to dig into attachment styles today. I think that understanding yourself and what version you might show up as, again, not to make this an identity that you're like, well, I'm just anxiously attached, so this is why I do what I do, and then don't change it. That's not what this is about. It's about understanding and recognizing maybe what attachment style you have, and I'm going to give you kind of the bullet points of what growth things you can be working on. So knowing this information is not an excuse to make it an identity and decide that you're never ever going to change anything, okay? Or that you can't change anything, because you can. Knowing this information is to be like, oh wow, I recognize that this is me and I see room for growth in this way. And let me just tell you, when I was reading over the attachment styles, I know exactly which one I am. And I started laughing when I read it, not because it's actually funny, but I'm like, oh, okay, I see some additional work that I can do in this area. And I also see where it has probably stemmed from and how it can continue to be problematic with certain triggers and what I'm going to have to work on. So everybody can probably recognize themselves in one of these attachment styles, maybe even more than one, but there's probably one that you're more heavily connected to. And so just listen to each of these and see what stands out. And I'm going to start with just talking about, attachment theory, which, is briefly, like in a roundabout way, it's just how we are emotionally bonded with others, and it's shaped by our early experiences. So this is another reason why I say, especially to women, but men, if you're listening as well, you will never regret investing in your personal development. Like, when you become aware enough of personal development, I really don't think that you will ever, ever, ever regret investing time or money into yourself and growing emotionally, especially with emotional intelligence. And even if that is not me, even if I am not the person you learn and grow, emotional intelligence with, you will not regret having those skills. And again, because we're talking about attachment theory, let me just repeat that. Attachment theory is ultimately how we are emotionally able to bond with other people. And it is shaped by our early experiences. So this means that you likely develop your attachment style. So whatever one resonates with you, as we talk today, you develop that based on your upbringing and the kind of attachment that you experienced with your parents or grandparents or the people you spent the most time with, caregivers, teachers, whatever. And it has become a part of you. But again, this is why I say it's really, really important. Although it is shaped by early experiences, it is not an excuse to make it a lifetime identity where you continue to operate in such a way that it can be harmful to your relationships. And harmful meaning, like, you can engage in not so healthy behaviors that end up sabotaging relationships because you're not healing. Okay, so when you become aware of any kind of self-development work, I really believe that all of the time and the energy and effort and money you spend is going to be well worth it as long as you're putting the things you're learning into practice. If you are just signing up for coaching or therapy and you're listening to all of the things and you're nodding yes to all of the things, but you're never doing anything differently or doing anything about the things that maybe you're learning about, or maybe some issues that you're having, that is a waste of time. But if you are going to take action and do things differently when you become aware, that is different, okay? So our attachments really show up in adulthood in how we give and receive love, how we handle conflict, and how we show up in connection. So it's not about blaming our childhood, it's about understanding the emotional habits of our nervous system that we've learned, and whether those habits are helping or hurting our relationships now. So I'm going to go through these 4 attachment styles, and I just want you to kind of think about what feels true. And like I said, you might resonate with more than one, but there's probably going to be one where your bells are going off and you might nervously laugh the way that I was laughing when I got to mine. Okay. And I will tell you, I'll be honest. I like to be honest. I like to be vulnerable, and I'll tell you like what mine is and how it shows up and what happens. I'm not going to pretend that I'm Miss Perfect over here. I've been with my husband for 15 or 16 years. And while we are good, every single relationship has its challenges. And a lot of times, anytime my husband and I have had challenges, it's literally been something like a pattern that has stemmed from childhood, something that we have not healed or trauma we experienced, and how we've somehow brought it with us today. So I am not too proud to say that I also recognize my attachment style and that I nervously laugh because I'm like, it's not good, but there's some things to work on. Okay. And everybody has one. So let's start with number 1. And these are not in any kind of particular order, but we're going to start with the secure attachment, so you kind of know what a healthy attachment looks like. Okay. So someone that actually has a secure attachment really believes like, I'm a lovable person and others are safe to rely on. Okay. So you essentially feel very safe in your relationships. Now, again, we're going to talk more so in terms of romantic relationships today, but this could apply to family as well. So again, you feel very lovable and you do feel that other people are safe to rely on. So what you're thinking like in your head, maybe I love, or I can handle closeness, and I can handle space. So there's this beautiful balance between you can be really close to people, you can also have and give space, and it means nothing negative, okay? It feels very safe to be able to distance and to be close. And the behaviors of this is that if you have a secure attachment, you communicate well, you are able to regulate your emotions really well, and you're open to love without the fear of being overwhelmed by it. Okay. So those are key things. So do you see how emotional intelligence is even playing a part in how, if you have worked or are working on your emotional intelligence, you can move more and more towards secure attachments in your relationships, okay? You're able to communicate better, you're able to regulate your emotions better, regulate your nervous system better, and you are open to experiencing love without fear of being overwhelmed by it. But here's the thing, there is growth available for every single one of these attachment styles. And for people or women or men that have a secure attachment style, you may need to check for people-pleasing tendencies or blind spots in emotional labor. So when I think of this, it's like when you're really, really secure in your relationships, just make sure that it's not leading to constantly pleasing other people, in order to feel that love or that safety. So I think that I've never really experienced a secure attachment because that wasn't totally available to me. I think maybe with my great-grandparents, I felt a very secure attachment, but for a lot of my other relationships in my upbringing, that was not my experience. So that leads me to my next, or not my next, but the next attachment style, and that is anxious attachment. I know that there are going to be women and men that can definitely relate to this attachment style. For the people that are anxious, like anxiously attached, especially when we're talking romantic relationship, it's this core belief that love could go away any minute. Any minute. So it's essentially, it's not safe, right? It can disappear. It's here, it's beautiful right here in this moment, but it could go away at any minute. It could be ruined any minute. So those are going to be kind of the core thoughts of someone who has an anxious attachment. And in the relationship too, if there's any kind of space or gap or period of time where maybe you're not talking, and for no bad reason, right? Just maybe it's an extended period of time where you don't get a text back or a call back, you might start thinking like, did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? Why haven't they texted me back? Like, you're going to have this internal dialogue where you feel a little anxious and maybe your heart is palpitating because you wonder, did I do something wrong? And what it leads to is overanalyzing, and you will look for reassurance, and you might take some things personally, like they're not talking to me. Why? Like, this feels personal, as opposed to they're just busy. And you might also notice that you really fear being abandoned. Okay. And so, especially for any women or men that maybe had an absent parent, like let's say you didn't grow up with your dad, or you didn't grow up with your mom, or there was a divorce at some point between your parents, or maybe your parents were around for a little bit of your life and then they, went MIA for whatever reason. That likely creates this anxious attachment, okay? Because now you're someone who fears abandonment in all of your relationships. They don't feel safe. So as soon as it feels like something might be going wrong, even if it's not, you will feel this anxious need to overanalyze and overthink and question yourself and, expect like, yeah, I knew that would go wrong because I have been abandoned before. Or, you might even say things like, well, I have a parent who hasn't been in my life. Why would I think that anybody else would be in my life? So if you've ever had a parent who has bounced in your life or not been actively involved or has kind of exited in any kind of way, you might have these thoughts of like, why would I expect any romantic partner to stay with me if my own parent won't? And it will be this very anxious attach. And I also think like with anxious attachment too, it can kind of feel like you might feel like you just want control, right? I want to know, like, what are they doing? What did I do wrong? That kind of thing. A lot of anxious behaviors may show up. All right. The next attachment style is avoidant attachment. And this is the core belief ultimately of, if I depend on people, I'll get hurt or I'll lose myself. And for a lot of people with avoidant attachment, it's the need for space. As soon as things get kind of serious or very committed, there is this like, I need space, right? Just avoid all the things. And behaviors of this attachment style is that, if things get very emotional, they will pull away. If, things are super, like things are getting close or intimate, they will go back to the fact that they value or do well independently. And it's often really hard for them to be vulnerable. And I get this because this one is me. This one is me. And I will tell you that the way that this shows up for me is it often feels like it's just easier to depend on myself. And vulnerability feels scary, right? Because if I do let myself, like for instance, if I let down and try to practice feeling safety in others, but then let's say they drop the ball or they let me down, then that attachment or that avoidant attachment pattern grows that much stronger and reinforces, see, I should just be independent because I tried to let down, or I tried to be vulnerable, or I was looking for emotional safety and something went sideways and now I have to go back to being independent again, right? So maybe this is you as well. And here's our growth. Let me just tell you, here's Macy, here's your growth. And whoever's listening, here's your growth. It is learning to stay present during the discomfort and letting people really see you or see us. And that's what's hard, right? With an avoidant attachment. For a lot of people, the way that this shows up is like as soon as things start getting serious. So like, there's a few different ways I think that this shows up. There's a way that this shows up for the people who are in a committed relationship already. And then there is the way that this shows up when someone maybe wants to be in a relationship, but they're not sure if they want marriage, if they want like the full Monty, okay? So when we're talking about the people who date with an avoidant attachment, it's kind of like they will talk to someone and things are really good and they're having fun. And then as soon as that other person confesses their love or feelings or thinks that they should move forward with maybe like, let's just say like a promise ring or moving into the next step of the relationship or engagement after a while or marriage, that is when it's almost for like this attachment style, like a suffocation. Oh my God, no, I don't think that feels safe. Like it's too much. I need space. I'm going to pull away. I'm probably going to like break up, just it's too much for people who have an avoidant attachment style. And then for the people who have been married or are married and are in a committed relationship, I can just speak from my own experience, and maybe you've experienced this other ways. But for me, it's like this really looking for the safety to let down emotionally, right? To say all the vulnerable things and to tell all the vulnerable truths of things and to feel safe enough that someone can hold it. Okay. So maybe that's you too. Like maybe it's this, I really, really want to be this person that can intimately connect and attach, but as soon as I do, I either freak out and decide I'm not going to. It's easier to be independent because maybe what it is like I assume the other person can't hold it or won't hold it, so I pull back. Or you may have had an experience where you practice that and then it wasn't necessarily held safely, or it might have been thrown back in your face, or you might have this experience where now you reinforce that avoidant attachment of it's just easier to depend on myself. It's easier to just be Miss Independent or Mr. Independent. So again, it's the work around this is letting people really see you, the true you, and staying present during those uncomfortable moments that make you want to avoid it all. Okay. Then the last one is fearful avoidant, and this one's considered very like disorganized. And when I think of disorganized, I think of like nervous system disorganization, although this maybe isn't what that means, but that's what I think of. And a big thing for people who have a fearful avoidant attachment style is that they want that closeness. And maybe this is kind of what I am, but it's like you want the closeness, but you can't trust it. And there is this element of like, I want to be loved, but just don't get too close. I don't necessarily feel like that, but I'm sure there's someone in the audience that's like, yep, that's totally me. And so what it will feel like for someone who is in this pattern is it'll feel like a push-pull in a lot of their romantic relationships. They actually might sabotage closeness, to protect themselves and feel very unpredictable in the relationship. And for this one, because it's a constant like push, pull, like I want to be close, like love me, help me. But then like, no, don't go away. I don't trust you, all of that. The growth part of that is trauma healing, because a lot of this attachment style comes from trauma. And learning how to separate your past fears from the present connection. So essentially, it's like whatever caused this attachment, whatever the patterns are that created this, you're going to have to work through the trauma of that and really be in the present moment. And I know that is hard. Like I said, I can definitely recognize pieces of me that, can feel that way. But through a lot of the trauma healing that I've done for, the last decade, I think that I resonate more so with an avoidant attachment style. It's easier to pull away when something doesn't feel safe and just be like, it's okay, girl, we've got it. We can be, independent. But then realizing like, well, that's not healthy either. And then remember that not only do you have an attachment style, so does your partner. So, a lot of times we attract also people that are similar to us or things that connect us in some way. So you might have the same attachment style, which could be very difficult in relationships, or you might have different ones, but because they're both, painful on each front of either relationship, right? One partner has one attachment style, the other one has another. You're wanting so badly to engage in this intimate, loving relationship, but you have these core things from childhood where it creates kind of like this disconnect. So you have to be actively willing to work through the things that you experienced, and you have to be the adult person that is this secure attachment. So you have to become essentially, even though you might resonate with a whole different attachment style, what you're ultimately trying to practice is a secure attachment style, which goes back to you need to be able to communicate well. To communicate well, you need to have emotional intelligence skills. You also need to be able to regulate your emotions. To regulate your emotions well, you need to have emotional intelligence skills. You also need to be open to love without the fear of being overwhelmed by it. Like, oh my gosh, this is too much. It's too much. And in order to do that, again, you have to have emotional intelligence skills. So even if you resonate with being an anxious attached person or an avoidant attached person or a fearful avoidant attached person, what you're working on when you're doing the personal development, self-help, emotional intelligence work is working towards secure attachments. Okay. And also, if you become a parent, just as a side note, that's also what you're trying to develop within your children. You want them to have secure attachments to you. But in order for them to have secure attachments to you, you have to know what that is and how that feels. So if you're not practicing your EQ skills and your kids are constantly triggering you and you're avoiding them, right, or anxious all the time, you could be creating this in your children. So that's why I said you will never regret the time and the money or whatever you need to do to become a better person. It is going to pay not only for yourself, your own happiness and sanity, but for generations after you. What you teach your children, they are going to do their best to teach their children, and then their children, and then their children's children, right? So you have the ability to be a cycle breaker, okay? But it means knowing this stuff and then actually doing something about it. So it's really important to know that you do not have to stay in the pattern that you've learned. Like, attachment styles are not fixed. They're simply a reflection of what your nervous system learned was safe, likely in childhood, okay? But again, with awareness and support and emotional intelligence, you can create that secure attachment within yourself, okay? Which helps you do that for other people. And here's the thing, you may be working towards practicing a secure attachment within yourself, but have a partner that is not willing to do that. And that's another thing that coaching can be great for. What do I do when I'm working towards a secure attachment, but my partner is triggered all the time? My partner is constantly reacting from that childlike attachment style. Then what do I do, right? So this plays out in so many different ways, because if you have a partner who's not doing any of their work and they're not willing to grow into a secure attachment either, then you're going to have this big energetic difference, right? And you don't want to take responsibility to fix the other person, because that's not your responsibility. And that will put you in such a fatigued position. So there's just so many layers to this. Like, you want to work towards your best self, which is a secure attachment. And your partner also has to want that as well. And I think where I see challenges is when one partner is doing that and the other person doesn't even maybe have the awareness or know. And then they really, really struggle to connect or stay connected or be healthy in relationships. So I want you to just reflect on what attachment style you feel that you are. And again, remember, you don't have to make it an identity, but what you may benefit from asking yourself is, what is this attachment style really trying to protect you from? And get to know that answer and then get to work doing something about it. Okay. So I hope that you really enjoyed this episode. I know that I loved being able to produce it. And if there's ever a time where there's a certain topic that you want to learn about and, I haven't created it yet in the 200 and something episodes that I've done, feel free to message me anytime. And also, if you're a listener and you've never let me know that you're a listener, or you've never reached out just to say hi, saying hi doesn't mean I expect that you're going to be a client, by the way. I love to hear people say that the podcast is helping them or that they're a listener. And I just love to celebrate that you are jumping into this world of working to become a better, more self-aware, emotionally intelligent individual. I think our world will be such a better place when more people can practice emotional intelligence skills. So I love to have you here and share it with friends. If you are loving it, make sure to leave a review. Those things help me so much. But again, if you would like to join the mini program, you have time. You can sign up all the way through June 15th. If you are a woman, the women's retreat is in Miami. You could get $1,000 off if you buy it alongside the Collab Studio. However, you don't have to do the retreat. You do not have to know if you want to participate in that now. If you want to decide to do that later, you can. Just know it's going to be full price if you do it later. But otherwise, if you just want to spend the next 6 weeks coaching together in the Collab Studio, and you want to learn your human design, and you want to learn how to trust yourself and really collaborate with other women and pull out things that maybe they don't see, and they can help pull out things that maybe you don't see, just make sure that you sign up by June 15th. So you're going to see it on my social media. If you're on my email list, you're already seeing it there. If you have questions because you're not seeing any advertisements for it and you want to sign up or learn more, then make sure that you reach out to me and I will get that information to you. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you soon. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of This Is Not Your Practice Life podcast. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on both Instagram and Facebook at Macy Renee Coaching. And if you want to stay up to date on all of my offers, announcements, and inspirational emails, you can join my email list at macyrenee.com. In addition, if there's a way that I can further support you in your coaching journey, you can schedule a free 60-minute consult at macyrenee.com anytime you want, so we can discuss the best options for you. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.